The weary traveler draws close to the end of the path.
We have never had it so good.
All of this just works.
We are selling tea to China.
You did not have to redeem this, ma'am.
Out with them, forget about them.
Your broadcast is very biased. You've written a lot of ridiculous articles, so I would encourage you to be more journalistic and have more integrity.
Socialism is when the government does stuff.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Longhouse, the weekly show for the sensible centrist. I apologize for the delay. Baby stuff, that's all I can say, really. It took a bit more time than I anticipated, and, everything fell apart. So I'm sorry that we're starting a bit late. But man, I'm sorry if I'm muting a little bit during the stream. I caught a bug from Baby Walrus as well, so I'm not sick, but my sinuses are a bit stuffed, so sometimes I have to clear my throat. It's been a week, and it's only Thursday. It's raining here all the time. Got a lot of stuff to do, and there's been, some depressing stuff going on, so we're gonna, of course, talk about the elephants in the room, as it were. And with me today, I have Ludwig Path, as usual. How are you doing?
Yeah, thank you. Good to be back again. Time flies quickly. So, I know how you feel with putting kids to bed. Luckily, I try to find some system for it. But of course, I know it's not always smooth sailing.
I have a system. It's just sometimes, it all falls apart. So, yeah.
Well, that's the way it is, but we are a pro-natalist show, which means accommodating, even though that's kind of European and lame. But at least, this is our third week consecutively, even with a slight delay. So I think we're doing better.
Yeah, it is. We're getting back into the groove, I guess. We also have a returning guest, Leo Borealis. How are you doing?
Good evening, everyone. Well, I'm doing quite well. It's raining here today as well. We got probably the same storm. Since I'm just over your eastern border, so I'm not in Stockholm anymore. So that's great.
Yeah,
but we kind of get the same weather. It's been really shit today, but it's still been kind of warm.
It is, which makes it humid, which I hate.
Yeah, the same. It's been awful. That's the awful part.
I'm not made humid climates at all.
No, it's a disgusting English kind of climate. It should be either hot and dry or cold and dry.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's no two ways about it. I guess we're just gonna have to jump right into it with the big headline, which is, of course, the unfortunate death of Charlie Kirk, American, I guess, activist is the word. He did work for Turning Point USA, if I remember correctly.
He founded Turning Point USA. I mean,
he founded it. Okay,
more or less is that brand. So.
Well, that's I guess we're going to get into it, because I didn't really pay much attention to Charlie Kirk, to be honest. But I mean, the take machine has been going nonstop for 12 hours. I guess we're going to give ours. Maybe I'll just get mine out of the way, and you guys can have your say as well. As I said, I didn't really pay much attention to Charlie Kirk. Like, I knew he existed because he'd cross my feed every now and then with video clips of him, debating some college student or whatever, owning the libs in a sort of Ben Shapiro-esque way. But I saw, of course, the video. Ended up seeing the video. It's not something I wish I watched, but I'm sort of glad I did, because I think maybe I'm telling on myself here, but looking at the way Twitter has responded to this, I think a lot of people on the online right, if you can put it like that, if we just take Twitter as like a whole in terms of like its current like rightward skew, I think Charlie Kirk in a lot of ways is very easy is a very easy template to sort of place yourself in his shoes in that moment. He's someone who I think a lot of us around here are older millennials, sorry, younger or older Gen Xers. Maybe I'm flipping it. Younger millennials, older Gen X. And will be sort of at similar points in our lives as him, right? We said we're a pro-natalist show. Both, I mean, Ludwig Path is one child ahead of me. I've just started that, but, wife, kids, white man. And I think to a lot of us, it's a moment of like, man, that could have been me. Although, of course, I'm not putting myself in that position. I'm not an exposed public person like that. But it feels very real. And in that moment, I'm thinking about his kids when I see that video. I'm not necessarily thinking about him. It's a shocking video, but it's kind of like, what about his kids? And that's something that's changed after I became a father, is something that I, you think more about the world through their eyes, in a sense. And I watched a couple of videos, as I said, of him debating lefties or whatever, and whether or not you want to say it's kind of like quote unquote slop or just sort of the content machine, some of it seems like he did believe genuinely that the way forward was through words, not violence. Like, he was hardcore debate bro, and in that sense, he really bought into the fact that the way forward is words, not violence, and especially not. I don't want to say random violence like this, but unorganized violence like this. Again, we don't know who did this. We don't know who might be behind. There might be more organized violence to this than we know. But this seems unnecessary, and it seems undemocratic. And I made a tweet because he had earlier shared a graphic about how many people were willing to justify the murder of Elon Musk and Donald Trump, etc. Violence against politicians. And okay, yeah, the lefties are leaning more to it, but in general, America is like leaning 30 to 40% of the population is okay with violence against against politicians, which is insane, right? So I'm thankful that I guess I live in a country that, although we do have our difficulties, it's not nearly as bad. So, I don't know what the outcome of this is going to be. If you look at Twitter, this is pardon the pun, a turning point. I'm not so sure. Ludwig Path always has the more sober takes, so I'm interested to hear what he has to say. I'm not sure if it's just going to be...
I'm going to try to avoid the turning point puns and any kinds of pun,
Right.
because I did think of a few. It's just sort of how my mind works, but it's just, sort of distasteful given the situation at hand. I thought you did a beautiful job just summarizing a bit more of the human element, which I think is very visible, especially if you see, I don't know how many in the chat saw the videos, but it's like these, when you see these things happen and people get shot and they die, it's a sort of there's a lot of that universal humanity that shines through in a few seconds, and you kind of, the ideological stuff fades away a little bit, and you, like you said, you see yourself.
You do, but I
So,
think Charlie was a person you could do that. I mean, not to be too controversial, but if Trump hadn't survived his assassination attempt, Trump as a figure, by nature, is someone who is more difficult to relate to in that sense, right?
I think maybe not for most Americans, but I mean, at least for us, like you said, this guy's more demographically aligned where we are. So he died at 31 years old. I think that's maybe a little bit underappreciated. Younger than he looks. He got started in this game, coming straight out of college, right? So he started Turning Point at USA at 19 years old as his conservative advocacy organization. Of course, because a part of his brand has always been the college is overrated, right? I think he is, in his 15-year career, he's cycled through almost every, conservative talking point. But like, that's one of these things he repeats, that like you shouldn't go to college because he succeeded that way, right? So at least you can't argue that he comes from some Ivy League background and just telling the proles to stay in trade school. Or whatever. But I mean, I can just say a little bit like some of my first exposure to him was through some of these memes that I just saw on Facebook, because it's like the Dare Liberal memes, right? I think that was with the Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk. I don't know if you could like just Google search them, so we could do a little mini eulogy here. Let's see there. Because that became a sort of format.
Was also someone who would like edit his they would edit his face to be smaller and smaller
yes.
on his head.
He has quite a sort of circumference on his head that sort of ties in with his like a slight thinning of his hairline. It gives this impression, especially from certain angles, that his face is just a lot wider than it is. So I mean, you could probably do an whole episode on trying to explain how that the geometry of that works, but it's probably not that interesting. But
it's interesting because I'm trying to find one of the originals and I can't, so it's only the memes that are coming up.
Well, yeah, not everything lasts forever on the internet either. That's one of the fun parts of being an old head, is just remembering stuff that used to be online and easily accessible, and now you can find it anywhere.
Yeah.
But okay, so where does he start out? Because there's a lot of reactions, and I noticed that in the commentary there's a lot of young, what do you call them, whippersnappers. If we're old heads or sort of semi old heads, then you have these baby faces who are coming in and making. I just noticed that a lot of their analysis of what's happening and the way that they look at him is sort of very much through the stuff that he's been doing in the last 2 years. And there's the people who came in maybe 5 years ago during COVID, and then there's the people who have just been watching him since like 2015, 2013, and like. One of my first exposures of Charlie Kirk was actually when he was feuding with Nick Fuentes, because I found Fuentes through social media, just through like viral clips. And then they had this episode essentially where he brought in a bunch of the sort of Groyper army to bomb one of the TP USA events. And I don't know if we can still find footage of it, but it's one of these sort of epic things where like there was still a lot of edge to the kind of social conservative, what do you call it, like hardline Catholic social conservative stuff that wasn't mainstream then. I think Nick Fuentes sort of won that. That's kind of what I'm seeing in retrospect, that he was kind of the trendsetter for Charlie Kirk in many ways, which is strange because he's a little bit younger. But this is just a difference in kind of a person who's a bit more avant-garde to a person who's a bit more institutional and entrepreneurial. And when I mean the entrepreneur, I'm talking about Charlie Kirk. For those who don't remember, this is like Charlie Kirk has a TP USA event, and it's really sort of featuring, we're going to bring, a part of the theme was that we're going to bring gays into the GOP, right? This is like 2015, 2014 stuff.
Oh man, that was a
So-
long time ago.
Yeah, but I mean, just for context, that's where we start out, right? So the
Gays for Trump and
original,
all that. Yeah.
no, this is like even before Trump, but yeah, it was Gays for Trump.
The
in
Golden
2015.
Escalator was a year later.
So it's like this is he brought this guy on stage. So I was sort of, okay, we have the gay black guy who served in the army, and he's going to talk about his views on free market economics. That's what they were doing at the event. And then all of these like Nick Fuentes guys are lining up to ask questions, and they all ask like, like how is what's like the this is that like the stone toss meme, the hamburgers question mark stuff, like what how does anal sex benefit our movement? It was like every person asked some variation on that question, and basically more or less said to that black guy's face that we're not really interested in having him in that movement. So it became a sort of spat. There was a period where I think Fuentes was just banned from these TPUSA events. A lot of the other groypers were banned generally if you were going to come in and be agitate. But I mean, if you'd said it today, that would just be par for the course. That's kind of the mainstream take. But so you start with this kind of Tea Party, low tax, libertarian stuff. Then in 2016, he's like a Trump skeptic. Then he goes in for Trump and starts doing more of this kind of culture war stuff. I think that's when he starts the professor watch list, which is something that Charlie Kirk was engaged in. I think it's through like the second half of the 2010s. It's really about like assembling lists of Marxist professors, trying to get them canceled. So it's a bit like Chris Rufo. That's the kind of stuff that he was engaged in. Then during 2019 and the COVID lockdown, he became a lot closer to the Trump government in a sense, or maybe let's just say Trump himself. And he helped him sort of organize this, what do you call it, like Stop the Steal, a lot of the 2020 election stuff. He was sort of an organizing character. And I think that's where a lot of the people who are doing this analysis and looking at him as sort of like, they asked the question, why Charlie Kirk? Like why exactly was he picked out? Because some people have the picture of him as like this moderate. I assume that's like from the 2015 era when he was talking about just free market economics, maybe some evangelical Christianity. But there's a lot of layers to this in terms of how his views have changed over time following the kind of trend trajectory of the GOP and Trump, the MAGA movement in general. So it's not just that he has followed it. He has been kind of more and more kind of an integrated loyalist through the sort of MAGA ecosystem as an organizer, as a sort of face of that policy outward, being an influencer who is on social media, who shows up to debates, like he travels around to university campuses to debate all of these bachelor students, master students on various topics. Like you've probably seen, he's been debating Israel, doing a lot of sort of foreign policy stuff. He's been big on Jubilee, on these kind of one of the last videos he did before passing was that one conservative versus 20 liberals in that surrounded format. So he was, I guess, sort of seen as more of a face of the movement. That's been the kind of progression of his career throughout like the last 15 years of him just gradually kind of working his way closer to Trump. And I mean, at the point now he's gone, but I would say, in the last year with Trump being in office, he has really been one of the characters that are probably, I wouldn't say closest, but certainly within close to the inner circle of people who are around Trump. But I mean, you can find, if you search Charlie Kirk Greenland, for example, you can see photos. I don't know, you can bring them up if you like, but you can see photos of
he was part of the delegation. Yeah,
he travels as this delegation to Greenland with Don Jr. and some other guys to try to talk Greenlanders into into being annexed essentially by the United States. So that's kind of where he is at. You know, he starts with this sort of constitutional Tea Party, free market economics, to really trying to help Trump annex countries. So
kind of an arc, really.
Yeah, it's a bit of an arc, but my view on this, and I've talked about this on X as well, is that he always fit the archetype of like the political entrepreneur in a sense, and it's been my view with him that he does not have a lot of very strongly held beliefs. I think he has talents. He's sort of a good-looking, well-spoken guy. He's very comfortable on camera. He makes people feel comfortable. He knows how to talk, and he's good at it. And he sort of excelled at this as a career and made his own way with the TPUSA organization and all of these ventures that he's been doing, and he's been reasonably successful at. And I feel like that, that kind of that venture, that kind of mini capitalism in itself, is really more of the point for him than actually any sort of hardline ideological things. But you see that with the current Trump admin, is that seems to be the MO of a lot of the people who are around him. It's not that they are hardcore ideologues. They are. You have those people as well, but you have more of these. I don't know if I'm going to use the word cynical or try to be too slanderous here, but people who are in this more as a sort of venture than they're interested in political things within themselves. So, it's cool to make money. It's cool to be around the president. And, if he has to adopt the viewpoint that like 100% tariffs on every country is the best economic policy, or that Trump should annex Canada or something, then that's what he's going to do. And that's what he has done, to be honest. I'd probably like to compare him more to someone like Benny Johnson. That, I guess most people weren't familiar with him before the sort of Tenet Media Russia money scandal. Yeah. But I feel like he fits the same archetype. So it's really not the fact that he is an ideologue with very deeply held, maybe anti-European beliefs, with deeply held Catholic beliefs. He sort of just moves with the market, so to speak, and delivers a service to people. The problem is that in the end, this ends up just becoming so incredibly toxic, because the people he's delivering the services to is like people like Benjamin Netanyahu, for example, or more on the explicit side, and maybe a little bit of rubles from a certain Vlad as well, which I sort of suspect. I can't prove that, but he's been one of the people ever since he got into more geopolitics after the sort of full-scale invasion of Ukraine started. He's been very kind of hard on the sort of Russian talking points. So I've watched him on Twitter because of that. Like, I know that he participates in these campaigns.
Call you out here because you've been shot called by ultra radical centrists before we started the stream, saying that we can't wait for Ludwig to blame the Russians. But I understand what you're saying.
Well, I'm not going to blame them for him. I think that the way I see it is sort of he is an entrepreneurial guy, and and that was a money making or a fame making or an opportunity making venture for him.
Yeah, sure.
But the problem is that it's just because the clientele is toxic. Yeah. He becomes toxic. That's kind of the problem with a lot of like the way that I've started to think about a lot.
It's like Nick Fuentes as well. He started to become captured by his own audience, right?
Well, yeah, audience captures is certainly one thing, but I feel like Charlie Kirk was a bit more institutional, if that made sense. Because let's say like the Israel question, right? If you just go by audience capture, then you have enough people online who just hate Israel and they hate Israelis, right? And it's very easy to get an audience by just making up some conspiracy or just blaming the Jews for stuff. Like, whether you think that's right or wrong, I feel like it's undeniable that you can get an audience fairly quickly. And you see that with people like, Jake Shields and Stu Peters and Miriam Gaines, like, Dan Bilzerian. There's a lot of these types who've just made that their full-time profession, to just do this kind of JQ noticing.
Yes, this means Civil War segment is kind of hard by Tim Pool, so it's kind of tough market to break into.
Yes, so this is but he's been more institutional. The guys who are in with Israel, it's like they're not just online talking to people on camera. They're actually in the organizations. Like, I mean, if you get like a guy from APAC talking to you or something, you're actually in the building with politicians, physically talking to them. You're not just sitting on social media platforms, and that's and he was like that. He would actually engage with people and talk to them and be more of a part of that system. And especially in the United States, maybe I think that's liable to change in the next 5-10 years. But the way that it has been for like the last 30, 50, 40 years is that if you are kind of on the inside with the Republican base, then you are super duper pro-Israel. No question. And that kind of just comes with the...
Get into one of the buildings where the politicians are, like stumbling across like 15, 20 8-pack, lobbyists and stuff like that. So they're gonna, who's this guy? Okay, he's talking to our guys. Yeah, we're gonna go talk to him. It's kind of like an automatic, and I mean, you're gonna offer him money when he doesn't have any. So
yeah, it's just an opportunity, right? They will invite him. He will go to Israel. They'll take him on tours around, do photo shoots, and they will boost him likely on social media and give him opportunities economically, socially that he wouldn't have had otherwise. So it's I mean, like, why not take it? If you just have that mindset that you're along for the ride, then sure. But of course, this comes to more of the point, because there's some narratives that are floating around in the take sphere, and there's a commentariat around this. And the first is like, okay, why Charlie Kirk? Because I think a lot of people have in their mind that he's either, well, he's not that radical, he's a very nice guy, he's not important. So if you're going to assassinate someone, then like, why him? But I feel like if you actually understand how close he is with the Trump administration and how influential he is on social media, just in terms of name recognition, not in terms of like you try to map out who has the most extreme trad Catholic friend enemy Avolian position or whatever, like some guy you've never heard of, but like a person who's actually out there, who's arguing for Israelis against Palestinians, who's arguing for maybe against feminism. So he is probably one of the most known people, right, with the most exposure, who well, quote unquote, does the most damage. From like, if you're a leftist and you look at this guy, it's like, yeah, he's taken the sort of he started to take the hard line, kind of anti-gay marriage line, the sort of more Old Testament view on homosexuals. He's gone hardline anti-feminism. He's very pro-Israel. He's very anti-Ukraine. So there's just so many points here, so many groups that I think he rubs the wrong way. But let's just say you're blanket anti-Trump. You're like a resist lib boomer in the United States. Then Charlie Kirk is also one of these people who are like one of the more sort of stable henchman characters who's in the Trump orbit constantly.
And very high, visibly high.
What do you call like a military speak, like a strategic, what do you call the high strategic value target?
Strategic asset.
And
one thing I think to more or less reinforce your position on this is that, as the meme goes, leftists don't read. They don't know shit. They don't obsess over stats. They just, they don't see any difference between him and, I don't know, Mega Groiper 1488 or something like that. To them, they're like both quote unquote Nazis. He's just a known and high visibility one, and the other one isn't. So of course they go after him.
Yes, the high visibility, but I also made the argument that, maybe you think you're like ultra-based Groiper or something, but you probably agree with the leftists on more points than Charlie Kirk, because I feel like a part of his brand now has just been owning the libs on every point, almost as a contrarian art. Because if say you're like a rape Groiper 69 or something, you can sit together with a lefty and talk about genocide in Gaza, right? And for some people, especially on the left, that's just like their entire identity. Increasingly, people are on the right. So you can find like some common ground here. But I feel like Charlie has just gone out of his way to contradict sort of the leftist position on every point. So, I think they would see him as like, okay, he's doing more damage by going on these debates, going to colleges, spreading that message that's contradicting our goals. But, or if you have the other idea that like Trump is Hitler essentially, then you can terrorize Trump by taking out people in his orbit. And so that's just my view, assuming that this is like an outsider who did this, because the perpetrator is still at large. I've not gotten any other news updates. If there's something else, then notify me in the comments. But it's been almost 24 hours, and they still haven't caught the shooter. So they don't know. I mean, if they never catch the shooter, I think a lot more people are going to maybe conclude that this was an inside job, essentially. And of course, the popular take online is that it's the Mossad inside job, because they had this idea that he was going to convert to Catholicism and turn on Israel. He was going to become Tucker, and that's why they...
Which is very strange, considering if you're saying that he's aligning himself with Trump. I mean, I would say the current U.S. government is quite pro-Israel.
Yeah, but of course there is rifts inside that. When you have people like Tucker, Bannon, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Thomas Massey, there is a contingent of sort of more anti-Israel people in the Trump sphere, right? So this isn't as clear-cut as you'd think. And I guess the theory is then that Charlie Kirk would turncoat and use his influence to kind of take people in an anti-Israel direction, and they couldn't have that, so they decapitate him with a sniper, essentially. And he will get away because then Kash Patel's girlfriend is in the IDF or something like that.
I think that's really overstating his influence, really.
Yeah, I don't know, but I mean, I just found it a bit hard to believe, considering that, as far as I know, they've not shot anyone else who is highly influential and more anti-Israel, at least not in the American space. It would just be a complete... I just look at the cost-benefit analysis for Israel to do this, and not a lot of... very low benefit for very, very high risk. But I guess it's more on people's mind because of the Qatar thing that recently happened, is that they could be a little bit crazier and actually go for more failed missions, and that Israel is getting more desperate. So, I mean, there's something there, right?
The Five Eyes and Great Britain and America were involved in the Qatar strike. They were active participants.
Yes.
The British rotated electronic warfare and AWACS planes outside Qatar directing the strikes. America was providing direct intelligence, like real-time intelligence. I mean, they were part in running the op. This is probably not the case here.
No, yeah. I mean, I feel like, Twitter has like become this choose your own conspiracy thing, and a good way to get engagement is just to ask people what their conspiracies are. I'd almost just try to avoid that. I just hate, because I know the people, the kind of accounts that do that, and why they're doing it. I'd rather just avoid it until we actually know what's going on here. But on like the very, very surface sphere currently, there's this discussion around the left and leftist violence and rhetoric and who said what, and it's probably the least fruitful part of this whole thing.
Military side to this, I mean, you're within 200 meters, inside 150, 200 meters, something like that. It doesn't look to be all that far away. Lying down in a prone position with a scope, it's not a hard shot. I mean, you can be a shit shot really at moving targets, but it's if guys sitting still, you're lying there. It's a turkey shoot. And I mean, it looked like he had a plate carrier on him. I mean, it was just really unlucky, because it seems like he was leaning a little bit back, and the angle made it hit the impact plate, and it ricocheted up into his throat. So.
Yeah, the type of guns that you can get in the United States, I mean, it seems to be really solid hardware. Like you don't need to be that good to get good shots with it. I think.
It's a hunting rifle, 30-06 caliber. The FBI said that's a hunting rifle.
I'm going to trust your competence on it. I'm not a gun guy. So I don't have good gun expertise in particular. But yeah, I think that's
kind of a right to hunt moves with. So,
but yeah, I think that's just my piece on Charlie Kirk. So yeah, we just you have to say that may he rest in peace, regardless of how objectionable I found some of his politics. It's just kind of depressing to think about his family remaining. So that's that.
Yeah.
Do you have any extra comments, Leo, or should I bring up some super chats?
No, not really. I mean, I didn't watch him. I don't think most of our guys from our side of the sphere do. I mean, the college debate bro gang has never really been our cup of tea, has it? So I don't really have any additional commentary on it, to be honest.
That's fair. I'm of the same mind. I didn't really have any relation to him in that sense. North Huger, History, Philosophy, and Art for $10 says, I used to be a critic, assuming, of Charlie. Now I just miss him, man. I believe he was sincere and took increasingly courageous stands. Important reminder that many more people care about you deeply than you realize. Peregrinus of Flandria says that he was a high-value asset. He also says Kennedy for a couple of minutes ago, probably in referencing sort of what could lie behind this, I guess, operation. I'm not sure if we're gonna spend more time on this. I think we've all said what we want to say. And as I said, the take machine has been going crazy for the last 24 hours anyway. So I'm exhausted of it all already. I don't think something might happen off of this. I think, I don't know. I'm more about organization than anger at this point.
Yeah, there's been
a Sorelian approach to violence is going to be my. I don't want random violence. I want it to be, if it needs to be used, I want it to be used with purpose. So I don't like this, right?
Well, I think there's been a lot of saber rattling going on the American rights, which of course, I mean, they are rightfully angry, but there's a lot. What I would just call it impotent rage coming out of them, because they're sort of making threats in a sense to the left about what's going to happen to them, but they're just not in a very good position. I mean, you think they are in a good position because Trump is in office, but that creates a problem, because if they want to engage in self-directed vigilantism, they're setting themselves up as a sort of competitor to the government that they voted in the sense, basically saying that, Trump's, Trump's mandate is not legitimate. We're doing we're going to do the justice stuff. In a sense, we're going to, because your government can't protect these people, then we're going to have to do it for you. And we're going to start engaging in this kind of civil war stuff. So in that sense, I feel like the American left, the more kind of radical left, are in a much better position to be terrorists. In a sense, I know it sounds weird, but they don't really have any sort of loyalties to worry about. They don't have to deal with this kind of contradiction about the people they voted for or who they believe is legitimate or something. I think in the minds of like some of these like trans shooters or whatever, they just feel like they're disenfranchised and they're just attacking the system, and that's kind of its own justification in a sense. With the people on the right, I feel like they're just in the real pickle in that sense, because they're I think they've gone sort of as far as they can go in terms of like their political radicalization process, because that's what's underlying in some of these threats, is that, you think we were radical before, just wait, the Charlie Kirk was the last center-rightist or whatever. The center-right is dead. I mean, the center-right in America has been dead for a long time. I think almost every, what I consider like, character in the Republican Party who's not sympathetic to Trump. They've just become Democrats, whether it's like Joe Walsh or Bill Kristol, like anybody like the Bulwark guys or something. They've all moved onto the other party. So it's really Trump loyalists or bust, and it's friend, enemy or bust. And it's been that way for a long time. So I don't know exactly. There's not a lot left to sit and threaten with. They've already taken the maximalist stance on friend, enemy, and not really tried to do any reconciliation. So I feel like it rings a bit hollow to sit and say that, well, now we're really going to try to get you fired or I don't know if you feel differently, but
No,
that's just kind of how I see it.
Because people tend to, as you know,
very low, Leo.
Yeah, we can't hear you now.
It's a glory political theory. The thing is, like so many, as we always say, that's not what's going to happen. It's going to be a slow decline. Look at more like Mexico. I mean, you have the cartels fight each other, the government fight the cartels, some cartels and the government fight another cartel, and you have like a lot of different regions. So essentially, if you want to go into history, it's more like, well, the warring states period in Japan. Like everyone wants to be shogun, but no one has the strength to do it. And
Nobunaga versus, yeah.
I am the emperor card, because you try to play, you can only play that card once. And if you don't succeed in playing it, well, then you're just done. You're over. Everybody else is just gonna gang up on you and eat you.
Yeah,
so
and Trump in that sense would be too old to sort of claim emperor of the United States at this point.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you can see it on him already. I mean, he's way too old for the job.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we should move on. It's been about 45 minutes.
Participation in the democratic process. Yay!
Yeah, we over here in democracy land, which is only available to true Nordic autistic democracy heads, we had an election, and the left won. We sort of predicted that this was going to happen, and we also predicted, or at least I did, that it was going to happen in the way that it did, which is like the hellish coalition, where they have to basically cater to the commies and the greens to be able to push things through. And I even said that there's like a world in which you should vote Labour to stop this from happening.
But it's really sad. I mean, look at what people will vote for just to avoid women in power.
Well, that's very well said. Yeah, the most based angle you could take here. So, but yeah, this was consistent with the polling market odds. For those of you who checked it, I didn't know that they were doing Norwegian elections or prime ministers or something, but it seemed completely consistent with what the odds makers were guessing, which was
not
a
quite
large
close,
edge.
though. And there are some, rumblings about the Farmers' Party, might pull a fast one and defect to the right.
Biggest anime betrayals of all time.
They will at least have that card sort of in their hand the entire, government period, to be like, if you don't give us what we want, we're gonna, go make a new government with blackjack and hookers, essentially.
This is a fragile, very fragile coalition.
So, it was a nice video, though, for those democracy heads out there that are our parliament released, because at the end of the election night, all of the politicians gather for like one final round of questions, or all the party leaders, and they're all having a good time. There you go. I had a hard time finding this video because I think they only published it on Instagram or something. Like the Parliament social media management isn't very good. They're like, oh, we made a new video, and I found like seven sources, but the only place they had actually posted it was Instagram. This is one of the places I found it. So I mean, if you're a Nordic autistic democracy head, you can have elections where the party leaders are friends and everything is great and we're all happy and nothing's ever going to go wrong.
Well, the Arbeiderpartiet did cheat. They did bring Jens Stoltenberg back in.
That is a bit of a cheat card. Yeah, they had a joker.
Yeah, I mean, that's like taking Wayne Gretzky when he's been retired.
Well, it's literally as if next election, Keir Starmer is like, and from the wings comes Tony Blair, right? It's literally that. Who's that? It's Tony Blair with the steel chair. Smashes. What's the name of the guy in the Conservative Party?
I think the new guy is called.
Yeah, it's the new guy. I forget his name. Whatever.
Rupert Lowe, I think.
Yeah.
Something like that.
It's the Dark Lord with a steel chair.
So there it is. You could see that actually Labour had a bit of an increase. The big winner here, of course, is the Progress Party, which is the nominal. I don't even want to call them far right, but they're as far right as the sort of Overton window goes. The low immigration, low taxes party. And then you have the Conservatives, who lost out quite badly, which we predicted as well, which everyone predicted except them for some reason. Like, I don't know what their strategy was this year and why they sort of just they walked into this with open eyes. I don't know. It's strange.
I think because we're going into a new era now where the right is getting harder and the hunger for populism and the hunger for kind of more harder right. I wouldn't say I'm not comparing it to Julius Evola, right? But the people want harder stuff now. So I wouldn't be surprised if they would get a new head of the party. If they know what's best for them, they should. It's like what Leo said. You should get rid of the women now as heads of these parties. I think that would do them a lot.
Yeah,
that would do
time.
I think the biggest mistake the Conservatives did was, or that Erna Solberg did, was not giving up her seat after her last stint as prime minister, because the party has been hemorrhaging great candidates that weren't given a sort of an opportunity to advance in the party because of her iron rule apparently. So I think she's essentially scuttled the party.
You have to take me out.
Yeah, it was all of these like twink Oslo men who they don't do weightlifting, right? So they all do like biking and skiing. So none of them can beat her in a wrestling match. She's just too heavy.
I see.
That's
they couldn't get. They weren't strong enough to lift her off the chair. I'm sorry. I don't know what came over me.
It's that's probably the ritual. Yeah. All right. Socialist left lost out a little bit. The Farmers Party lost out a lot because they essentially bungled everything when they were in power last time, which makes sense. Commies gained a little bit. The Greens gained quite a bit. Got back over the lockout, which is 4%. The Christians are back in the game. The Liberals, they lost out. Then we have the minor parties.
Well, yeah. So
and Ludwig, why don't you take it away?
No, I mean, I wanted to make some comments, I guess, first on on like the reshuffling here and the result that we got, because there are small movements here. You're seeing like 9% down, 0.8% up, whatever. But because the lib left got pushed below the threshold, they lost 7 mandates. So if they'd had, if they had 0.3% more, they would have had 7 mandates for the Conservatives, which means they would be like tied or perhaps even beating the left coalition. So yeah, because they were just, I don't know. I guess it's an issue with the lib left is that they've just been this kind of fringe, irrelevant party, not because their policies are fringe or anything, but they don't have anything. They don't have any influencer superstars. They're not connected to any populist issues. Like some people are on immigration, some people are on like this kind of tax populism. Some people are like Gibbs or this stuff, and like you have these various things that people are very interested in. Maybe culture war for some people. It's like renewables. They just got nothing. They come across as boring. Who do they appeal to? Well, I think highly educated people in urban areas. I mean, I'll just disclose it right now.
Those tend to vote for Greens, right?
Well, because the Greens and the Lib Left are actually quite similar on a lot of policies, right? I mean, I'll just disclose it now. I voted for Lib Left to save them in the coalition. Right? That was my strategic gambit, because I was afraid this was going to happen, and it did happen. And you can very much make the argument that the people who voted for these niche parties, they sunk this election, more or less. I don't know if they lost them
for
from
this party. Essentially, you should actually have voted for this. Yeah,
you could have thrown in your vote for try just to keep Lib Left's head over water to maintain that coalition, and they wouldn't have that much say. But as to who they appeal to, let's say like we talked about these windmills last Longhouse, right? And I was giving my rant about the sort of NIMBYism, YIMBYism, right? And that's one of the things that I think is attractive about Lib Left and the Greens, right? We look aside from other things. So just we take immigration away, for example, and we'll just look at some other policies. I'm interested in like building projects and housing, for example. And I know that people want to live by city centers. They want to live in Oslo, Kristiansand, Bergen, Tromsø, these larger centers, because there's jobs. But there's always a problem with housing demand because of the NIMBYs, right? They want to have stricter building regulations so they can maintain or raise the property prices. Whereas I would be in favor of, okay, let's just loosen the regulation and make it possible to build more houses so people could move in there. And like the Lib Left and the Greens are actually very good on those particular issues. I think better than anyone else on here. I say like the Center Party, the Farmers Party is basically, it's just a NIMBY party. I think Progress Party on this issue is just NIMBY, right? They're just about like, when they talk about property rights, they just essentially mean people who have property in Oslo that's like worth 4 times as much as it should be, so they can just maintain that property value. In a sense, that's just kind of how I look at it. I mean, I know people have different views, but this is just where I am.
Anecdote about that from Stockholm when I lived, because it's one of the it's like say a kilometer or two just outside the central islands, so it's just a little south of town, where we have these large green belts, as they called, with natural forest that comes into around it, and it's really fucking expensive to live there. And a couple of years ago, the city had plans to take down a bit of one of these forests, because they are quite large by city standards. So it's not a park; it's a small forest. And, build a new area with somehow some apartment, maybe some chain houses and stuff like that. And oh my God, did the old and gray 68 lefties and the hippies of the day, I mean, they combed through that fucking forest, beards and everything, and managed to find some red listed species and an endangered woodpecker and just killed it. And it took them like 3 weeks to organize that and just kill it completely. Started, local papers, national papers, everything is like that was really impressive, actually.
Yeah,
They're all
that's
like
exactly my point. And this is like a bipartisan thing. It's not just people, like you said, who are on the right or on the left. It's just generally like boomers or people who got in early who want to stop other people from getting in. And generally, I think it's a good thing that if people want to go places to work, they shouldn't be killed by paying rents or live in like 10 square meter apartments because they can't afford anything else. So that's why I'm kind of a fan of lib left in a sense. If you just look away from some of their immigration and refugee ideas, I'm actually quite a fan of that. So yeah, that's just my little rant on it and why I'm kind of a little bit bummed at the result. But
your gambit didn't pay off. Sorry.
Yeah, my gambit didn't pay off, but whatever.
Peregrinus de Flandria for €2 says, voting, I'm gonna vote. I love my 0.0001% of power.
You might as well take it. It's more than zero. Let's see. So yeah, but now we can look at the exotic parties here. So in number 1 we have the pensioners party that like nobody's even heard of before.
No, like some people have heard of it, and they do well. They do well where I live. Sorry, what?
I said the boomers want more money.
Yeah.
For themselves and for the government programs that they benefit from.
But yeah,
the grabbing hands grab all they can.
It's very, very, very unknown, but in parts of the country they're decent. Yeah.
So you got so straight beneath them we have the Norway Democrats, which we've talked about them a little bit. We've had an episode or maybe more dedicated to the Norway Democrats, and I guess this is for Longhouse old heads, where I think in like the 2022 we were excited about because they had done the election. They got 1.1% of the vote, which seemingly was below their potential. There was an internal coup in the party. Certain people were kicked out. We framed it as, the boomers are being kicked out in favor of the based right-wing, trad-pilled, conspiracy-pilled, anti-WEF gang or whatever.
I'm not sure if we said conspiracy-pilled, but at least it turned out that it was the conspiracy pill. Yeah.
Yeah, in spirit at least. And now that you have those people like ruthless political, steely-eyed, realistic realpolitik operators, they're going to take the party to the moon. But no, they lost half apparently of their voter base. I think they had like 30,000 last time, and now they lost like 12,000, which is not because they sat on their hands. And like that's the frustrating part here, because they actually did a lot. It's just that it all sucked. It just 100% cringe, everything they did. And like I think that the party should just be nuked. Everybody who's involved with it should just be erased.
I did some calculations, Ludwig, in our Telegram, right? And I did some research and I gathered some numbers, and I admit I did use some chat GPT to correlate some of those numbers, but there is a very real possibility that they've spent essentially millions of Norwegian kroner to post, AI longships on our feeds, and they still just to lose.
Oh no!
To just shit stuff all over our feeds for like 2 years, right? Spend basically tax dollars, in that sense, tax money, right? To then just proceed to lose harder than they did before,
yes.
Which. We could, we've criticized them, but I have to say right now, the Schadenfreude is real. I am enjoying it. You guys made fools of yourselves, and I hope you learn from your mistakes. But listening to you guys on Twitter for the past couple of days, it's clear that you don't. One of you guys who touted yourself as like the the marketing guy behind the Norwegian Democrats said that yes, this is an echo chamber, but I like it here. So I don't know what to tell you, dude.
Yeah, the thing with if your worldview is based entirely on conspiracy theories, you don't have to learn anything ever, because you can just invent new ones, right? But let's look at some of these. I did compile a few of these marketing ploys that they spent money on. So I'm posting one now in the private chat. So this was one of the things that they focused on, is the Bovaer issue. We talked about that, how like there was being a mandate that certain cows would have to ingest some chemical to reduce the CO2 emissions from like gas and everything. So they made this into like a big thing, right? And here, this is in Oslo, right? And you have a truck with advertisements. It says, "Let the cows fart and burp freely." And then there's the logo. So yeah,
It's an AI generated cow, by the way.
AI generated cow. Let the cow fart.
Run that kind of thing. That's the worst way you can do it. I mean, go on the medical angle. Jesus Christ, that's what people are worried about. It's like, oh, let them.
I think even that is would be a bit more niche, because I think people aren't as terminally online as they are, and they aren't as low trust yet. This might change in 10 years.
You have to mention
but
parked
I mean,
outside
it's
the
such a
Blitz.
weak thing to latch on. I mean, Norway have bigger problems than fucking. They're gonna give Bovaer to cows. What do you have? Like 5 cows?
So, the head of the party also posted a advertising video where they explain their position on Bovaer. So maybe you could show that one, and you could see like the caliber of marketing that they had and the stuff that they've spent money on.
Vil du ha ren melk fra friske og sunne kuer? Kuer som har naturlig kosthold? Det ønsker vi i Norgesdemokratene. Det ønsket også Tine før, men det ønsker ikke Tine lenger. Nå ønsker Tine at kuer skal spise farlige kjemikalier. At kuer skal gå på et kjemisk unaturlig kosthold.
Bro, if you spend hang on. If you spend like 5 minutes in any video editor, you know that you can't use those colors on text. I can't read anything.
Kosthold. Tukle med naturens gang.
Well, fucking red text. This is like, Windows Movie Maker stuff.
Naturens gang. Tine mener at kuer skal spise Bovaers.
And the fucking blinking and the dancing text.
It's turning into shit post.
Norgesdemokratene vil garantere ren melk til deg. At norske kuer skal ha rett til ren mat uten farlige kjemikalier.
Am I playing at 2 times speed? Is the
this is the normal speed,
is running
actually.
at like twice speed. Yeah. I love this. Why is it so fast suddenly?
It's like, don't they have any quality control?
Well, yes, they just looked at that stuff and like, yeah, that's going on the main channel. That's good enough to send out. I mean, there's a lot to critique there, but the problem is that, especially if you are like a niche micro party, you're not going to win on production values, but you can at least provide authenticity, or at least the illusion of authenticity. Like the way you don't do that is just use AI LLM generated images in everything, and like the video uses like AI generated basically photos of cows farting nuclear blasts out of their ass, and it uses AI voice generated. Like, just turn on the webcam. Like, why not? I mean, if you have some guy who's like semi-charismatic, you just turn on the cam and talk.
To be fair, the party leader is decently charismatic on camera. Like, why doesn't he?
Yeah, I don't understand why. Just ditch all of this AI nonsense, because they have so much of it. Like, every time they're making compilations about like their future vision of the country or something. It's just like this, like the AI Viking ship or the AI fjords or something like that. It's like the Longhouse background photo, and they just used AI to animate to something that's their vision of where we're going in the future. Some like romantic, canvas or something. So. But I mean, that's just kind of the surface. That you have stuff like that they're posting, constantly sharing around, and they think that this is going to win people over. And then they were doing stuff like, let's say they were posting their own. They were basically ordering private polling from these companies that they were posting on their accounts, and they were using ad spend to promote.
Well, if you can share your screen there, and I'll bring it up.
Let's see. Do you want me to do screen share or?
Yeah.
Okay, just a moment. I need to just get the little bit of adjustments, and I'll share. Let's see. Share screen. Okay. This is it here. That they had essentially ordered, like for private polling companies to give them polls, and they were like doing +2% or something in these polls, and they were sort of always referencing like, we're on track to essentially break through the threshold. You have to vote for us. And people were asking like, where are these polls even coming from? And I think they were like almost 2 weeks behind. A lot of people thought they were just making it up in the beginning because they were just referencing all of these polls where they were pushing ahead, and then doubling their results. But it didn't. None of it materialized. It just seems like this kind of oversampled nonsense. Let's see what else we have. They also did, along with this sort of remigration conference and then the sort of AFD thing that they were doing these what do you call these kind of tours, immigration tours of Oslo. So they were basically, they announced they're going to be there. We bring people from the AFD, and then counter protesters showed up. So they had to do it like 2 times. And they filmed.
It's kind of
the
showing
Antifa.
how sort of well organized the left is, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Even though
but I mean,
like they're all weirdos, right? They're every time they do anything randomly, right? The left shows up like 10 times their number to shout at them.
They're on social welfare. They don't have jobs to go to.
That's true. We guys have places to be.
It does benefit you if you live centrally and you don't have a job. But I mean, this is okay. I'm just not sure that this appeals to a lot of people as like election material. Are they owning the libs? I'm not really sure what exactly is accomplished by this.
Very fringe. Cringe.
They also end up putting themselves in a bit of a pickle there because because they are so online driven in a sense in their marketing, in their platform. That means that the Norway Democrats has been traditionally very pro-Israel. So it's the same thing I was talking about with Charlie Kirk. Is that if you're institutional and you're actually sort of in the room with people, like you get the Shlomos that come and talk to you about anti-jihad and this kind of stuff, and that's kind of the background that they come from. This is typical if you're a Scandinavian far-right populist party, Northern European, Central European populist, is that you're going to be pro-Israel, and the angle then is just always Islam. You try to read Islam from your society in a sense, but because they are so online, they end up in this conundrum where the pressure is really in the opposite direction. It's really to condemn Israel.
One of the high-profile guys in the post-mortem they did on Twitter yesterday said that he was so tired of like trying to bring up like talking points about, we don't want to be reliant on the EU. We want out of the EEA, right? To only then have people say, yeah, talk about the Jews. So he was like, I don't want to talk. I'm trying to do politics, right? This is, by the way, the same guy who said that I know it's an echo chamber, but I like it here. So I don't know what these people want, honestly.
Well, okay, but we're gonna do like the crown jewel here of cringe, because they're doing their own stop the steal currently, right? So they're going to storm the Capitol when they've counted up all of the votes. And this is something that it's not just something that they started to do after the election. It was sort of months ahead of the election. They started talking about, election fraud, essentially, and saying that there's a lot of fraud in Norwegian elections. They advocated that people would vote on the day, right? Don't use pre-voting, because they think the ballots will be tampered with. Which is it's sort of odd, because it's like trying to copy paste the Trump 2020 failed strategy onto themselves.
Brain.
I mean, I think part of the reason, Trump advocated people vote on the day in 2020, which I think actually hurt him. In 2024, when he won, he told people just to early vote, essentially. But the thing is that if you look at some of these post-election polls, and you can count how many people voted early, how many people voted on the day, it seemed like half of the people who voted for the Norway Democrats voted early anyway. So they're apparently not reaching their own audience with these messages. But what it says here on the on the photo here is that they, we fear election fraud. Send vote to this number, and there's a mobile number here. And if you check out this mobile number, this is like some boomer living in the north who is in the party, who just like offered to sort of, okay, you can use my number as this sort of like reserve counting mechanism. So he will, in an ideal world, like let's say they would get 30,000 votes, then he should get 30,000 SMSs or something. And then he will just have to sit on his phone all night to try to compare, cross-check every phone number or something with that. And of course, like none of this is going to hold up in court, because there's no cross-verification with ID or anything like this. It's just a phone number. So it's not going to hold, because I guess they were sort of not completely sure about that. They also made like an extension to their website. Let's see if I can find it, where they added in some kind of extension where you just sort of register yourself by email. So their kind of election security thing. It seemed like some sort of like WordPress thing. That you register yourself with email.
This one's better, by the way.
It worked, but then they got DDoSed apparently, and then they got it back up again. But again, it's sort of like even that's not going to hold up in court, because anybody can make an email, and you can have multiple emails per person. But even after this result, they're still banging on about this stuff, like asking people to keep sending them emails, keep sending SMSs if they voted, so they can count to make sure that the results was fair or something. And I don't know, like they're sort of hoping that they can dig up what is it, like 40,000 votes or something. They would need maybe 50,000. That's just lost. So I have no idea. This is just super online stuff.
But
it doesn't make sense
they would need to get an insane amount of votes to get past, like, to affect the election in any way, right?
Yeah.
So what's the point other than like bragging rights about, oh, we were right, we thought we were going to get like 3%, and we actually lost half.
This feels like a confused and misdirected energy. I mean, why would you even try to do
It's one
this?
of those things Nordanon said in the comments, like,
complete
give me
clown
10
car.
years. Yeah, give me the party for 10 years and I'll be in parliament, right? It kind of feels like it.
Yeah, I think that they, yeah, sounds stupid, but that they need new leadership. But yeah, that seems to happen pretty consistently. They just change leadership over and over again. I was thinking about
What
like this
certainly
because I
didn't
have
work is that their current leader seems charismatic enough, but he has a tendency to just, I think you called it conspiracy hop. He just like takes on every talking point that everyone brings into the sphere, so to speak, and then it just becomes a total mess, like the party standpoint.
Well, he has no immune system against the online slop. So whatever he sees on his Facebook timeline, he believes in, and that becomes policy for the party. And of course, long term, that's not sustainable because there's the stuff that he's getting is not consistent. It is just post-truth stuff that he's being fed from like various. It's really propaganda for Americans that he is watching, and he's absorbing that and trying to integrate it into where he lives and talking about, well, look at what's going on here and look at Bill Gates and look at it, and well, this is what you get. So I think they are now they're sort of
very boomer shouting at the TV tier. I mean, it's like, as you say, people like this tend to forget, like, that's America. This isn't. It's kind of half a world away, and the things that goes on here that has, in reality, I mean, like in not hyper reality, but reality itself, very little impact, really. I mean, it just doesn't. People just think it does, but it doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, a lot of people believe different things, and you can have these weird beliefs. It's just the kind of newer idea that you're supposed to integrate every conspiracy you believe into your political party program. That's sort of a bit new, and I don't think that the at least the Scandi countries, that's not going to be a viable strategy. It's not the viable strategy now. It probably won't be for maybe 20 years, depending on how things go. But what can I say? It's just kind of depressing. If you're being beaten by like the Pensioners Party, you're being beaten by the like that woman with the app. That's just like the one woman party where she's just screaming at politicians and talks a bunch of nonsense about her app and sort of like, what's even the point? That's just where I'm standing, and the only thing they've accomplished is sort of sinking the conservative majority. So, whoop-de-doo. I mean, I'm not rich like the people who bought property in Oslo for 30 years ago. So the election result is not going to impact me a lot personally, and I assume it's the same for you, Walrus.
Oh, yeah.
Property tax, wealth tax, I'm out of range of any of these, and
I'm more on the local elections anyway. So
no. So yeah, it will not be very critical. I assume things will just keep hopping as they are. So nothing to really moan about. But I personally would have liked to have seen the more immigration populist government.
I would have personally liked that too. Yeah. So hopefully by next time, unless Labour pulls a Denmark and starts adopting Progress Party talking points and actually follows up on them, but one can only hope. What I thought was funny, you shared a tweet with me of some guy who said he he had voted red, the Reds, the commies, last election, but now he moved to the Norwegian Democrats, which is it's a fun leap.
This is what is it, Luigi Maggioni politics?
Yeah, I said it's not a horseshoe, it's a carousel, so you just have to enjoy the ride, right? And I think that's a good as any point to end the stream on. I think we've talked about everything we wanted to talk about. We could go more into some Charlie Kirk stuff, but maybe we'll there's been some developments in Norway about that, but maybe we'll follow that up next week.
Let's get off this wild ride for today.
Yes. Thank you everyone for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us, Leo. Anything you want to share
It's
before we
always
go?
a pleasure.
Anything you want to point
talked over
the
you,
people
so
at? Yeah,
No, I don't have anything to shill.
that's fine. Lollypath.
No, I'm good. Thanks to everybody for tuning in, and hopefully we'll see you again
We're
next
done
week.
shilling for this year. Yeah, no more shilling. We're de-influencing now. Yeah. We don't have anything either.
My stone for the next part of the year, so I'm going full grog mode.
I know the feel. All too deeply. All right. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We will be back next week. And we hope you have a great rest of your evening, a great weekend, and we'll see you then. Bye-bye.